You guys need to talk about, so he's going to do the next presentation, so why don't you tell him what you're here for?
I race internationally, and basically race kind of like the Olympics of off-road.
Oh, okay.
And just won 12 out of 13 days that other races. So
How was it?
it was gnarly. It was
How'd you do?
kind of won, kind of did. It's a weird thing. It's like
Kind of
over. So
Congratulations. Congratulations, have it not.
yeah, so I won 12 out of 13 games. One of the days I got a big penalty because I didn't finish times. My car broke, so I didn't win overall, but I broke a record that was standing since I think 1974. So that was super cool. But yeah, it's kind of
Congratulations.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Did you race in country?
Yes.
It's not great.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, sure. That'd be awesome. And then I got
Seth.
Well, welcome everyone to the San Marcos City Council meeting for February 22nd, 2022 to 2222. And we've got a really fun meeting today, but if you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Do you want to lead it? Okay.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you could please remain standing, we have an invocation this evening by, I think it's me. This will be a prayer for unity, so please bow your heads. God of peace, we invite you to preside over this meeting. When we have different opinions, give us unity of spirit. Help us patiently to listen to others as they share their points of view. Help us to work as a unified team in combining ideas for a great outcome for our wonderful community. Help us to work as a whole rather than as individuals trying to promote their own agendas. May we have a spirit of camaraderie in this room and work together on our shared mission. Amen. And please be seated. Can we please have the roll call?
Councilmember Musgrove? Here. Councilmember Nunez?
Present.
Councilmember Walton? Here. Deputy Mayor Jenkins?
Here.
And Mayor Jones?
Here. Okay, so I said we have a fun meeting, and we definitely have one. So if the council could please join me down in the front. Our first presentation will be for Terrell Burgess. Oh, we want you to see. So Terrell, and if you could please come up, and your mother Ingrid as well. So we're really excited to do this here today because the LA Rams, well, they won the Super Bowl, and and what an exciting time it was leading up to all of that too. So Terrell, we would like to present you with this, but I'm going to read just a little bit. Okay. So it is long and wordy, but I won't read all of it because we don't want to bore people. Anyway, the San Marcos City Council hereby recognizes Terrell Burgess from the LA Rams. Whereas Terrell Burgess grew up in San Marcos as a resident, attended San Marcos schools, participated in San Marcos Pee Wee football, San Marcos Youth baseball, and San Marcos Youth basketball. Whereas Terrell has volunteered and participated in the Shooting Stars basketball program dedicated to challenging athletes for a number of years. And whereas Terrell still holds the San Marcos High School record for an interception return, having run back an interception for 105 yards. I don't even know how you could run that long. Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. For a touchdown against Granite Hills in the 2013 CIF playoffs. What year were you? Were you a sophomore? Sophomore? Mm-hmm. Okay, whereas after being recruited by a number of Division I college football programs, he decided to go to the University of Utah. Good job, Mom. We recognize the city of San Marcos of California do hereby commend and recognize you for your outstanding achievements as part of the National Football League Super Bowl 56 Championship LA Rams on this day, presented February 22nd, 2022.
I don't really have too much to say, but go Rams. I really am thankful for growing up here in San Marcos. I'm thankful to you guys for allowing me to come to the city council meeting. I don't know if any of you guys are Mission Hills fans, but go Knights and go Rams.
I just want to say thank you because we moved here to San Marcos in 2005, me with 4 children, and you guys have embraced us from the very beginning, so we just thank you guys so much for the support all the way to where Terrell is now. So we just appreciate you all, and thank you so much, Mayor Jones, and thank you, everybody. Go Rams.
And thank you for the cheer team for being here. I appreciate it.
Wait, not so fast. Now you have to take pictures with us so we can memorialize it. Yes, we want the cheerleaders to come up and take some pictures. Yeah, let's move over a little bit. Yeah. And then we could have that in the back. I need my granny glasses. So next, we have Seth Quintero. So Seth Michael Quintero has been a lifelong San Marcos resident. He attended San Marcos schools also and always had an affinity with the desert. So Seth has maintained excellent grades during his academic career in San Marcos while excelling in off-road racing all over the world, and has sponsored and mentored other youth drivers in the off-road racing industry. He completed in an off-road racing event all over the United States, as well as Mexico, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Spain, Morocco, and Italy.
Yeah.
Wow, literally everywhere. And most recently, he took the record for the highest number of stage wins in a single rally with 12 victories at Dakar, and has achieved a notable accomplishments in racing while representing San Marcos all over the world. So we also, the San Marcos City Council, here Dubai recognize and commend you for your outstanding achievements and wish you the best of luck in the Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Well, first off, I'd like to say, go Grizzlies. So thank you all. Thank you, everybody. But, got to know where the home turf is. But, yeah, thanks to my family for being here. Obviously, to San Marcos. And I'm never left home. So it's always nice to be a local San Marcos kid representing us all over the world. So hope I can continue to do that, get a few more wins. Obviously, congrats to you, too, as well. But, yeah, go Grizzlies.
And just for the record, we love both high schools, of course. No, you don't get to go. You don't get to go yet. And Mom, would you like to come up?
Come on, Mom.
Yeah. Mom? So funny calling your mom being that I'm older than she is.
She's a grandma.
I can be.
Isn't that crazy? Where am I standing?
Scooch right in. Aaron? Aaron,
Come on, Aaron. Anybody wants it?
Dad might want to come up.
Yes,
Come on, Aaron.
I'm sorry. The whole family can come on down.
Oh, someone up there.
Oh, Nana's coming.
All right, thank you so much.
Well, in San Marcos, we happen to like our ice cream too. So we are recognizing Winston's Ice Cream this evening. Where's Sarah? Is she here? There you are, Sarah. Come on down. Wait, where's our mix master? That's what I call him. Come on down, Steve. Okay, if you haven't been to Winston's Ice Cream, you really need to check it out because it is amazing. And it's right here in San Marcos in North City. And guess what they won? A chocolate award. Like, not even a chocolate award for local chocolate ice cream, but a chocolate award for nation.
National,
Yeah, the nation, okay? So, we love our businesses in San Marcos, but we love when they're doing extraordinary things too, and that we get to all taste your wonderful ice cream. So, the San Marcos City Council hereby does recognize Winston's Ice Cream Company because they opened in fall of 2020, and despite opening during the height of the pandemic, have experienced great success in the community. And they have collaborated with other local businesses on flavors like honey almond, coffee, brigadeiro, in order to introduce a constant rotation of new ice cream flavors for customers to enjoy. They also entered their first Cone Con. I guess that's like a Comic-Con or something. Okay, last fall, and their chocolate ice cream was double-blind taste tested by professional food scientists at Cornell University, as well as an extensive scientific study of ice cream's ingredients in Cornell's dairy lab. And Winston's Ice Cream won for the Wins Chocolate Award, earned the National Blue Ribbon, and ranked one of the 4 best chocolate ice creams in America by the North American Ice Cream Association. That's pretty amazing. So today we recognize them again on February 22nd, 2022. as a wonderful achievement, and we are so proud of you. Thank you so much. And please, how did it all start?
Ouch. Thank you so much. I mean, a big part of why we were doing this is because we love San Marcos. We love the community. We moved here 6 years ago, and instantly just fell in love with this place. We lived all over the U.S. and other countries in the world, and instantly fell in love with San Marcos. So really, this is thank you to all of you and everyone else in the community that's been so supportive. Opening a business in the middle of a pandemic was scary, super scary, and it's just been tremendous for us. So thank you all so much.
And it is a family affair.
Yes.
It is a family affair. Even your
Yes.
kids work with you, right?
They do work, they scoop, they help make ice cream. Chris is making the ice cream and churning every day, and my favorite part is just being able to talk to everybody every day. I always wanted to make money and talk to people, so living the dream.
It's a win. It's a win-win.
It is a win-win, so
All right,
thank
so
you,
let's take a
everyone.
picture. Thank you. Yes, definitely. Yeah. In the front and in the middle.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we have Valacito's Water District. We all like to be able to turn on the tap and have water come out. So we would like to recognize Valacito's Water District. We have a couple of board members, and I'm assuming you'll want to say a little something when we're done. So in its ongoing partnership with the Valacito's Water District and the city, whereas the City of San Marcos and Valacito's Water District have a long history of working in partnership to serve the citizens of the City of San Marcos, whereas the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California offers member agency administration grant funding for water conservation projects, whereas MAP funding is coordinated through the San Diego County Water Authority, and both the City of San Marcos and Valacito's are concerned with about single-use plastics, of course. The Valacito's Water District, on behalf of the City of San Marcos, applied for and obtained MAP funding in the amount of $25,000 to install 5 water bottle filling stations at the following eligible parks located within the city: Mission Sports Park, Woodland Park, Bradley Park, Connors Park, and Bulow Park. Are those all installed already? Yes, so you can go there when you're at the park, take your reusable bottle and fill it up. So, whereas we are very excited to commend you today in your efforts, and we would ask you to come say a few words.
Well, thank
you
you
so much.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. A little bit of background on this project. In Valacito's Water District and the City of San Marcos have had a long tradition of working well together and partnering on such things. And I'm glad that this effort finally came to fruition. But it all started with a phone call a year and a half ago, maybe. It's with COVID, time kind of is lost a little bit. But a long time ago, Mayor Jones called and said, "Hey, what are your thoughts about maybe putting some bottle refilling water stations in some of our parks? Would Valacito's be interested in partnering on something like that?" And I said, I don't know, but let me take it back to our team at Valacito's and talk to the board and see if that's something that perhaps we can look for some funding for. And fortunately, as the proclamation stated, we were able to find $25,000 through a grant with the San Diego County Water Authority, and we were able to quickly jump on that and take action and install these filling stations. My favorite part about the filling stations is not just that we can go and help protect our environment by limiting the number of plastic bottles that are out there, but they also have refillable doggy bowls at the bottom. So those of you that are walking your dogs in the park can actually provide them water too. So that's pretty cool. So thank you again for your partnership with the city. Appreciate it. And thanks for the proclamation.
Thank you.
Big camera.
One more.
Oh, I got Chris in there. One more. Super, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's it. See, yep. Okay, now we're getting down to business. So if you are, if you wanted to take a quick exit, now would be the time. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, now we see how many people want to listen to our boring area meeting. Okay. It's all right, we're not offended. We understand. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So one of our residents today said, "Oh, I'm really excited what's happening there at City Hall," and so she offered to come and take pictures for us. So thank you so much. Really, very cool. Okay, our next order of business is our general plan update presentation, and I believe staff will be queued up for that. Yes. Do we have any members of the general plan update committee? Well, if you could stand and be recognized, we'll cheer you on like we were the cheerleaders. Okay, well, you're still serving. Thank you. Thank you for coming this evening. All right, staff, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jones, council members. So tonight, Beth Herzog, who's our general plan project manager, will start off our presentation, and she'll be followed up by Amanda Tropiano, who is from De Novo Consulting, who's our general plan update consultants.
Good evening. A few items and topics we'd like to cover tonight. We're going to go over the background of the project, the schedule, where we are to date, and also the future action items, work progress, the summary of the visioning workshops and surveys, and then the next steps. For a little bit of background on the project, the comprehensive general plan update was initiated in late 2019. The project, however, was put on hold in April of 2020 as a result of COVID. There were a few elements of the general plan that the city did continue to work on and adopt in accordance with state law. That included the updated housing element, which was adopted in July of 2021, and then also an updated safety element and an environmental justice element, which were both adopted in November of 2021. The comprehensive general plan update was relaunched last summer, about mid-2021. In terms of the schedule, from what we've completed to date with the relaunch since last summer, we relaunched it in July of 2021. In the fall, we worked on the existing conditions report. And then where we are today is we're in the preparation of the land use alternatives. The rest of the schedule will be discussed a little bit later in the presentation. To drill in a little bit into the work progress completed, as mentioned, we've completed existing conditions report. This is a baseline of available information, and it covers a range of topics, including land use and mobility, conservation, and market conditions, just to name a few of the topics. Copies of the existing conditions report were provided to the General Plan Advisory Committee, and they are also available on our project website. We've also conducted extensive community outreach over the past several months. This has included a direct mailer that went to all residences and businesses in San Marcos. The direct mailer was in both English and Spanish. We've also conducted several press releases, website and social media postings, We've emailed stakeholders as well as subscribers to the city e-notifications. We also attended the street fair as well as the San Marcos Elementary School Resource Fair. We participated in the city podcast and have also reached out with our community housing resources. There have also been several stakeholder consultations to date. We conducted a briefing with the Commercial Real Estate Development Association. We've met with the Sierra Club, ongoing tribal consultations, and next month we've reached out to the school district to participate in their English Learner Advisory Committee meeting, and that will be a Spanish-speaking briefing with the group.
All right, good evening. My name is Amanda Tropiano, and I'm a principal with De Novo Planning Group. I'm going to cover a few of the other work products that have been occurring over the past several months, and then provide the overview of where we're headed from here. So through this process, we've also indicated on that direct mailer that went to every business and property owner in the city of San Marcos, an opportunity for property owners to submit a request to the city for a change in land use as a result of the process to update the city's general plan. This fillable form was made available online for 6 weeks, and we have received approximately a dozen responses. This period has now closed, although property owners can continue, of course, to reach out to staff with any particular requests or concerns on their property. We did receive 12 or 13 requests from property owners within the city's planning area for consideration of a land use change as part of the planning process. Those requests are being evaluated through the land use alternatives preparation, and I'll speak more about that in just a moment. But I did want to highlight some of the key trends that we heard from these property owner requests. In general, the requests did revolve around changing an existing use to allow for residential where it's not currently allowed, and in particular seeking some higher densities than are either currently on and available in the land use map, looking at densities of 30, 40, or 50 DUs an acre. Also, just a trend, several of the property owners indicated that the MU or mixed use 3 designation that's currently available in the general plan isn't exactly working well for them, so an option to convert it to another use. Some general interest in changing some limited industrial areas to residential, as well as just a recognition that I'm sure you're all familiar, property owners appreciate the opportunity to prepare a specific plan to customize their land use standards, and that continues to be a tool that property owners see as an opportunity here in San Marcos. Next slide. We've already been able to highlight our General Plan Advisory Committee members here tonight, or our GPAC members, so thank you for joining us. I've had the pleasure of meeting with your GPAC members 8 times over the past 2 years or so. The GPAC is composed of 13 primary members with alternates identified representing a range of different seats, including community at-large members, the business community, the building industry, member dedicated to the sphere of influence, educational representatives, representatives interested in parks and open space and infrastructure and water. This group has met 8 times. What a diligent group over the past 2 years, starting first in July of 2019, taking a brief pause during the pause of the comprehensive general plan update, but then relaunching in earnest of July of 2021, regrouping in October and meeting monthly through January of this year. We are taking a short 2-month pause with the GPAC as the consultant and staff team works to prepare the land use alternatives. We've covered a range of topics. A lot of the initial meetings were welcome meetings, relaunching meetings, logistical meetings, but we've dug deep into some of these topic areas with focused meetings on mobility, economic development, safety, noise, community facilities, and then most recently, focusing specifically on land use planning. Next slide.
I have a question. The stakeholder consultation meeting in Spanish that's taking place with the school district, what's the date of that meeting?
March 23rd.
And do we know who's going to be doing the presentation?
Yes, we have a staff member, city staff member that'll be conducting the presentation in Spanish.
And is that open to the public?
I don't believe the meeting's open to the public, no.
Is there a reason why it's not a public meeting?
No, it's one of their regular monthly meetings for the DLAC.
Will that be recorded?
Yes.
And what time is that?
It's at 6 p.m.
And do we know what the physical location is?
It'll be at the school district headquarters.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that.
Sure.
You're going to their meeting.
We're going to their meeting, yes. This
yes.
is not a meeting specific for this. We're attending. We're on their agenda.
Right, okay.
All right, so the next few slides are going to focus on some of the outreach that's been conducted in the fall of 2021 and moving into the beginning of this year. We were really excited to host a series of visioning workshops. These were in person in late 2021, located throughout the community at different locations. We hosted a meeting in late October, mid-November, and early December. And these were bilingual. We had interpretation services available at all of the events, and were advertised again as part of that bilingual direct mailer as well. So we were excited to connect with the community in different locations and in different ways. The first workshop in October focused on vision and values, kind of goal setting, vision statement setting. The second workshop in November was focused specifically on land use and community design. I'm going to go into these all a little bit more in detail in the coming slides. And the third workshop was focused on mobility or transportation. Next slide. So the summary provided to the community is available on the website at sanmarcos.generalplan.org. We have summarized the results of this visioning process. The first workshop, again, focused on establishing assets, challenges, and vision statements related to the community. We facilitated a Post-it note exercise whereby community members were able to write their opinions or their input and post it on the boards, and we were able to synthesize and group those into kind of some key topic areas. As you had seen on the slide, we had approximately 60 people at this attended this meeting. We had over 1,000 post-its at the end of the workshop, so your community members had a lot to share, which we really appreciated. But in the themes, we were able to extract pretty succinctly in terms of assets. The community identified your beautiful parks, recreation, and open space areas, and the scenic quality available to San Marcos residents. Your wonderful educational resources everywhere from your very youngest children to your very oldest residents. The sense of community here in San Marcos, and then as well as some of your recreation, your retail, and economic development opportunities. On the flip side, the challenge could just generally be summed up as maintaining all of those assets as the city continues to grow. So balancing growth with maintaining the high quality of life that your community members have come to so appreciate in San Marcos, particularly in terms of traffic and infrastructure needs, both local and regional facilities that needed some special attention, and then opportunities to capitalize further on your economic development opportunities in partnership with some of those key assets that I had mentioned. Next slide. We also facilitated a mapping exercise to start to build some information on certain locations of the community that warrant special attention through the land use planning process. We were able to identify some areas that deserve to be preserved and protected, some important roadways and corridors that warrant some of that special focused attention, particularly in terms of community design, as well as other just general areas, particularly along the transit line, where potentially land use changes may be accommodated in order to help stimulate and capture that vision that was set out earlier in the meeting. Next slide. At the second workshop focused on land use and community design, we facilitated a series of 2 primary activities. The first was basically an image survey or image board. Again, all of this information and the focus of these maps are available as part of the summary report on the website. We were sharing images of different types of development, not necessarily here in San Marcos, but throughout the region, and just generally asking the community members to identify the types of development that they think have a home somewhere in San Marcos, not specifically where, but what types of development or nodes of activity would they maybe like to see here 10 or 20 years down the line. And we were able to facilitate that through a mapping and dot exercise here where community members were provided some of those dots and able to post them, as you can see in green here, on those images that reflected their vision. Next slide. And then the second part of this was asking them to connect those pictures of development that they'd like to see to certain specific geographies on the map. These locations were born out of that initial exercise at the first visioning workshop, where we were able to identify some of those areas that warranted that special attention through this community planning process. Next slide. The mapping results, again, are summarized in the report, but essentially the university district and your community core, your civic core, those are the areas that your community members were most interested in seeing kind of some focused attention, some specific emphasis on creating sense of place and that experience-oriented environment that really helps existing and future residents and businesses thrive. I'm sure all of this is sounding very familiar to you with the investments you've made in these areas. So this was some additional information on potential types of development that they would like to see, but also a validation of a lot of the hard work that you've been doing to help create these special areas of opportunity throughout the city. Next slide. At the third workshop, we focused on mobility or transportation. Some other people might say just traffic, but we want to talk about things besides just automobiles. We talked about biking, transit, walking, and driving, and the future of mobility. What's it going to look like as we start thinking about the San Marcos of the future? How are people going to get around? How do they want to? And what types of technologies need to be supported through the general plan? Most of the participants currently don't ride a bike either for recreation or for transportation, but found that if safer areas were provided that they felt confident riding in, that could be a potential to improve some active transportation improvements. And of course, your city staff and yourselves are already working hard to identify those potential opportunities. Most participants in the meeting also do not currently use transit, and we were able to dive a little bit deeper into kind of some of the understanding, some of those barriers to ridership and how the general plan might be able to support improved opportunities and connections with the transit facilities that you do have here, which are such a unique asset. And that most participants noted that additional routes or stops might include, including local stops to have that first last mile gap closed, might improve their usage of transit in the future. And most respondents also indicated that traffic congestion was, quote, very bad or most bad in the mornings and evenings, particularly around school pickup or drop-off times.
Curious, was there any discussion about electric vehicles and infrastructure? Because I know I hear that a lot from folks. They think, well, I can't actually buy an electric vehicle if there's nowhere to actually charge it. So did they bring that up at all, or?
Yes, absolutely. So both in terms of the physical infrastructure, how do I use the types of facilities available, and how can San Marcos include, particularly that this project includes a focused update to your zoning code, how might the city be able to help facilitate that within your purview or prerogative? But also just how it affects land use planning if cars are provided on demand and different types of how sites are organized or where parking might occur currently for apartments or condos, what that might look like, the role of garages or how those fit the future of development. Those were all definitely big topics that we'd like to explore here.
So one of the things that I personally think, and there's a lot of information to substantiate this, autonomous vehicles are definitely going to be on, as you had discussed, on demand. What do people think about that? Because when I bring it up, I get kind of mixed results on that. Was there any discussion specifically about that?
I'd say it's a mixed bag. I think in general, the San Marcos community is very future-oriented and innovative and wants to be prepared. So I think in a lot of ways, that is a priority, and I think we've heard that. But the day-to-day operation is kind of an interesting dynamic. Like, at what point are you at that point where you start making those changes? So I think there's a balancing act that your community's expressed that they appreciate that's probably the way of the future, but we live in the here and now, and how do we continue to plan for the infrastructure and needs we have today? So that's an interesting dynamic. I'd say for the most part, we appreciate that there are technologies that might come online over the next 20 years that we aren't even talking about because we don't even know what they are. 20 years ago, they probably weren't talking about, ride sharing and Uber and Lyft type of needs. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next slide. And we were able to dive a little bit deeper into those corridors of particular traffic or mobility concerns. Again, lots of familiar faces here. Some, just overall consensus around the 78, just understanding how people are getting on and off. The pass-through traffic that San Marcos experiences as commuters along the highway seek to avoid some congestion. The impacts that has on the environment here in San Marcos that you're tasked with kind of dealing with and understanding what regional cooperation and collaboration can happen in order to help protect your community. And just congestion on roadways, being able to impact the potential of active transportation improvements, how people walk or bike on those facilities when there's a lot of cars or a lot of traffic, certainly helps provide some context to why people might be challenged to ride or bike in current conditions. There was an interesting discussion around an opportunity to have kind of a loop or shuttle system. Again, these are visioning exercises, so we're still pretty high level here, but just an idea that there'd be some sort of local circulator that could get around the community to key nodes or destinations and help reduce some of that overall traffic as something that should be explored as part of this process.
Well, it is being explored, so yay.
Yeah,
We talked about that when we actually approved the Creek District. I don't even remember what year that was. I want to say it was 2008, maybe. That's actually part of it. And then we have the congestion management, which, district, which honestly was part of helping to pay for that. So that is happening. North County Transit is going to have a pilot project. So
Excellent.
Good. I'm glad people are receptive to it.
Very much so.
Yeah, good.
All right, next slide. We also were cognizant of the fact that some members of the community weren't able or were not able to join us in person at these visioning workshops. So we did facilitate follow-up surveys that replicated the questions available that were posed to the community at each of the 3 workshops. We hosted those in a virtual platform on the project website. They were provided both in English and Spanish, just like translation services at the workshops themselves. And we replicated those questions to mirror the input we sought at the visioning workshops. Those were individually advertised via press release, social media postings, postings on the project website. Again, all of the typical methods we were using to conduct the outreach to your community members, as well as, again, sharing that with the school district as well. We received 50 or so responses to each of the surveys. Again, these were really focused on people that weren't able to participate and join us in person. That information largely validated the input that I had previously shared on the prior slides. We heard a lot of similar themes and input, and those survey results in their raw form, which are quite interesting, are provided as an appendix to the overall visioning workshop series summary report. Next slide.
If we can go back under the advertise via where it says community housing resources, what does that mean?
Sure, we reached out to some of our affordable housing developments and provided the information to them in both English and Spanish for them to post and distribute in a method that they would think would be helpful for their residents as well.
And is that information available to us to look at to see specifically what communities receive the information?
Sure. We sent it, I believe, to all of our affordable housing communities and received feedback that 5 distributed it to their residents. I'd have to confirm. Sure. Sure. Sure, absolutely.
All right, so I just wanted to summarize kind of the key themes that emerged throughout all of those opportunities for public input. Some of this is going to reflect the assets and challenges presented at the beginning of this conversation, but generally a very strong sense of community that should be preserved and protected. It's what makes San Marcos feel special. It's why people move here. It's why people stay here. It's why people decide to raise their families here. So understanding those qualities of life that really need to be protected through the as the city grows or changes over the coming years. A unique history, your available natural resources, connections to your transit facilities and educational institutions obviously help make it stand out as a stellar opportunity for both residents to live and work here, and really helps it create its own sense of identity along the 78 corridor. Allowing for an additional range of housing options, particularly affordable to lower income households or attainable to workforce housing, can foster a more inclusive environment where persons from different backgrounds or incomes, different points in their life, can find attainable housing options here and ideally bring jobs and housing opportunities closer together. That future new growth can be accomplished in areas where new development is near goods, services, or transit, creating more walkable nodes and improving overall community health and wellness. Next slide. So just a few more slides for us here, and then we can answer any other questions you have. I'm going to come back to the schedule now because I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into where we're at. In particular, the focus of our work over the coming months is preparation of a land use alternatives report, and I'm going to speak to that in just a moment. That's going to take us kind of through the spring and summer. And then moving into the fall, preparing the policy document, the environmental report, and then circulating those documents for public review. Bringing it back here for public hearings, that's way in the future. So again, we're looking at a multi-year effort here, but taking us through kind of this calendar year, focusing on land use opportunities, preparing and circulating that land use map for consideration that will be the foundation of the policy document and ultimately reviewed in the environmental impact report. We're scheduled to be looking at public hearings on the entire package of material in the fall of 2023. Next slide. So just diving again deeper into the land use alternatives report, the focus of our work over the coming quarter. Essentially, this is a document, this is a report, kind of a cover-to-cover report that's going to include a discussion of different land use maps. So you all know what your current land use map looks like. It's the colors on the map that talk about what types of uses go where. We are going to be facilitating kind of a strategic review of potential changes and understanding how those changes impact different resources, fiscal priorities, land use planning priorities, looking at the build out of units, jobs, housing, work-life balance, and all of those components through this process. So our goal is to essentially synthesize the information we heard from the community and your property owners and staff's input, experience implementing your land use map and plan, and develop a series of focused alternatives that are evaluated. None of those are going to be right. We're going to have 3 maps in the report. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of each of them, understand how different colors on the map influence those different indicators. None of them are going to be perfect. That's not the point. The point is to get to present to the community and to your General Plan Advisory Committee, to your Planning Commission, and to yourselves a series of options so that we can kind of Frankenstein together a preferred land use map that serves really the best representation of each of the components of those alternatives or something else entirely that might come through this process. So it's very iterative and it's very collaborative, and we look forward to working with the community through that process in the spring and summer of this year. Next slide. So this is just a reminder of some of the upcoming outreach. As Beth had mentioned, we do have a dedicated opportunity, and we're much appreciative of the school district inviting us to join them at their regularly scheduled meeting in March to discuss the general plan and solicit input as part of that option. We are reconvening the GPAC in April to meet monthly, generally speaking, for the next 6 months or so, kicking off with the land use alternatives discussion, but moving on with our other topical areas. We hope to also be able to host some in-person pop-up events, of course, in accordance with any applicable health and safety protocols. We look forward to kind of those more informal opportunities to connect with your community. We anticipate hosting either an in-person, virtual, or hybrid open house to receive and solicit input on the alternatives report. opportunities to connect again in those more informal formats, like at the farmers market, and continuing to engage the stakeholders that have already been part of this planning process. So with that, we also welcome any other ideas that you have for us to engage your community. If there's anything that we haven't mentioned on this list, we are all ears. We would love to ensure that we're really connecting with everyone that we can, so that this document really represents the best of what San Marcos's input has to offer us. So next slide. I'm pretty sure that's it. Yes.
So first of all, when you say that you're going to the school board meeting, and then a little bit later on the bullet point, it says continued coordination with the school district, community organizations, and faith-based institutions on future opportunities. The school districts are indeed part of this whole process, right? Okay, I just want to make sure, because I thought that we had definitely even put a representative on there. And then I wanted to bring up the Springs Street Fair through the Chamber of Commerce. I forget when that is. I want to say maybe April, but that would be a good one too to have a booth at, just so everyone could. I mean, we normally have a booth, but I'm assuming to have something that's specific to the general plan, so that people can give us their feedback. That would be probably good too. And one other thing, QR code. Do we have a QR code that we could use at the street fair? Because it's really easy to do. I actually made my first QR code for my podcast, so I know it can be done. Even I could do it.
That's a great idea.
So,
we can make
yeah.
sure that that's available on our material.
I think that's great, because then people don't always have to necessarily, if they're just walking by, they don't have time to stop, they could just at least open up the QR code and then be able to give us feedback. That would be really easy for them. Okay, any other questions or comments? Yes, council member.
We
sorry.
don't necessarily.
Randy was going first, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, first, thank you so much for this presentation. It was thorough and excellent, and quite honestly, really encouraging. I think I've said this out loud, and I'll say it again. This is arguably the most important thing that we'll do as elected officials in this city, because we're creating the blueprint, the Constitution, whatever you want to call it, for the city for the next decade. And it's always felt strange as an elected person to be kind of removed from the process, because we're not part of this sausage-making exercise, even though people, when we campaign, they say, do this, don't do this, I want that, I don't want that, right? So your presentation in its thoroughness is really, it's really encouraging to me, at least. It's nice to see that people are forward-looking, right? I mean, there is a future barreling down upon us, and we're either going to be ready for it or we're not. And a lot of that has to do with technology, and a lot of that has to do with how we prepare as a city for when that time comes. And it sounds like the committee is aware of that, wants to adapt, and wants to be ready for that. I'm also really encouraged by the map, right, about the spots in the city where we can do some more infill type developments that are near resources and amenities, where people might not have to get in their cars to go buy things or entertain themselves. And so that's really encouraging as well, and this desire to go denser, right? Because we need to start thinking about that. But obviously housing is the big deal, right? That's the big issue, concern that people talk about all the time. And even when we launched this a couple years ago, I think we would all say, man, housing's expensive, right? And that's like, what, 2 or 3 years ago. Man, housing is expensive. Now, it feels like it truly is a crisis, right? I mean, it truly is a crisis. In fact, I saw a report of an economist who said that in North County, in the last 5 years, we've seen a net loss of people under the age of 40, and a pretty substantial increase in residents over the age of 60, right? And so that is, assuming that's true, and I assume it's true, it's data-driven, that's bad news for school districts, bad news for families, bad news for businesses, right? Because where are we going to find our employees? Where are people going to move to sustain the schools? And I kind of noticed a trend in my 3 years on this council. When we've approved a couple of condo developments and a couple of affordable housing developments that all kind of on the exterior look kind of the same, right? We do some really nice affordable and really nice condo. But the condos tend to be huge square footage, and affordable tends to be substantially smaller, even for 2-3 bedrooms. And I'm wondering if that conversation is ever broached in these meetings, not just density or numbers, but actually how big are the livable units? And because obviously that's going to play a major role in affordability. That's a question.
I had the pleasure of working on your housing element as well. You didn't see my face necessarily as part of that, but that was a major topic of conversation. If you can remember, in the housing element, we have a new section that talks specifically at fair housing issues. And one of the qualities that emerged in San Marcos was, overcrowding or overpayment conditions, which is largely a byproduct of smaller unit sizes that tend to be more affordable. As part of your housing programs in the housing element, there is focused direction provided to staff to work proactively with the development community to encourage the provision of larger units that are affordable or attainable to lower or moderate income households, and potential funding opportunities or other incentives or encouragement that could be provided to close that gap, particularly in terms of unit sizes. So I think that that's a very pertinent conversation. We do have an opportunity through the comprehensive general plan update to reopen and revise the housing element if it's so warranted. And we can certainly dive deeper into that as we start thinking about what those potential new higher density projects might look and feel like and the role of unit sizes in those. And certainly as units get smaller on the same footprint, the project could get denser. So if the units are smaller, you can have the same looking project. It could just be more dense than it was before, and that might be an opportunity for new types of land uses.
Yeah, excellent, thank you. And then when these conceptual maps are presented, I don't know, it's going to be next year sometime, right? What role does the council play, if at all, in the decision making around those concepts before their final product is presented to us?
Well, I'm happy to start that, and I'd allow anyone else to chime in. From a technical perspective, we see the council's involvement is critically important. This is a policy document that will only ultimately be brought before you for your review, consideration, and ultimate direction. So we will continue to provide these briefings and certainly answer questions and facilitate the conversation on a quarterly basis. And those material, as well as the input provided by the community on the potential options, the alternatives, are certainly presented both to your Planning Commission and to yourselves for direction for staff to move forward with preparing that preferred plan.
I think also the council will recall back in 2019, which was a long time ago, the conversation did occur that when we got to the right parts of the process, the council might want to have a joint meeting with the GPAC and talk about those kinds of things. I think we're arriving at the beginning of that point in time by getting to this stage. We have to sort of get the work sort of in a presentable format to have, I think, a meaningful conversation. If we just sort of sat in a room and threw ideas at the wall, probably wouldn't be the most productive way to go. So I think that meeting is probably, sometime this summer. I think the schedule was this summer in terms of some of that land use stuff. And so I think that's probably when it would make sense for the council to look at having that kind of a joint meeting and sort of getting the information at the same time and providing some input that it sees fit.
Excellent, thank you.
Councilmember Musgrove.
I'll be brief. On your online surveys, 55, 53, 55, are you able to discern in your software if those are the same people over and over again, or do you may not track by name, and there may be an option for a name, but there's certainly a way to check the IP. Are you able to know that we're not getting feedback from the same group, or does it matter to the process?
We are not getting feedback from the same group within each individual survey. Each survey is different. Survey 1, 2, and 3 replicated the first, second, and third of the visioning workshops, each on different topics. In general, if someone logged onto the website to take one of those surveys, they took all 3 of them. So the same person generally took all 3, but they're not replicated within the survey. Okay. Those are individual responses.
Okay, and the notification for those went out as much as any other meeting so that everyone potentially has the opportunity to log in at their convenience within the given span for the survey period?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Deputy Mayor?
I have several questions. I appreciate that
you're coming to the council, I think we talked about every 6 months, because I don't think that happened with the last update. So I think it's good that we're getting an update as we go along. When do you likely see the final product coming to the council for approval? I see you're going to have public hearings in the fall of '23, but you have the public hearings and you have planning commission. When do you likely?
So I'd say there are two key decision points through this process. The first will be selecting and receiving your direction to move forward with preparing a policy document, the general plan, the goals, policies, and programs, and conducting the environmental review based on a preferred map or a proposed land use map. Once that will be a critical decision of the council to provide us with that confirmation and direction, and we expect that to be, as your city manager had mentioned, based on discussions and collaboration with yourselves and the GPAC sometime in the summer of this year.
Okay.
Once we get the direction for that, we start spending a lot of time and money based on that map. So significant changes or deviations from that map start to have real repercussions. So we want that confirmation and clarification from council that we're in the right direction and to move forward with preparing a document, an environmental document. Then the actual product, the cover-to-cover general plan plus the environmental impact report, that goes through, of course, the traditional 45-day review for your environmental document, circulated for review and comment with all of the appropriate agencies and with the community, and then initiate that public hearing process in the fall of 2023, starting first with your planning commission and then coming to yourselves.
Okay, so by the end of '23, or are we talking the spring of '24?
We're talking the end of 23.
Okay, okay. And then when we, I think, first brought the GPAC members to the council and kind of kicked this off, and I realize this is a very high-level look that you're doing right now, but there were specific concerns that the council had brought up, not concerns, but issues, locations and different things that the council brought up. When will that all be reviewed and incorporated into the plan?
When you say locations, are you talking about geographic areas of the city, like the Creek District area, or?
Like we talked about, I'm trying to think, well, I think there's maybe only two of us that were there. We talked about things like making sure we identify land needed maybe for another fire station. Making sure we had school sites with input from the school district. There was a whole list of, I probably still have my list, and we wanted to make sure that was all reviewed. When does that getting reviewed?
That's part of all of
Somebody has
this
all that
right
list
now.
from the five
When
council
there was a
members.
reference to community facilities earlier, that's what those are relating to, those kinds of
Okay.
future community facilities like fire stations, parks, what have you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so somebody has all that information?
Yes.
Okay. And then, so what are you finding as you're doing these with, I'm assuming you do others also, what are you finding is the change since COVID as far as how businesses are looking to do their business? Because, is the business community changing in some aspects?
The business community is changing, and I'm going to pretend to be our economic consultant right now. So we have a very talented economic consultant working on this effort. What they would say, and what I will say, is that there were trends already changing in the commercial real estate market, and the pandemic accelerated the change in those trends. It did not necessarily fundamentally change commercial real estate. There is some debate over how people will return to the office environment. San Marcos does not have a huge office environment already, so in lots of ways it was kind of insulated from that. San Marcos also has wonderful, anchor tenants, chains, and, industries that were able to withstand the economic pressures of the pandemic and not as susceptible to smaller communities or, smaller local businesses that really took the brunt of the economic impact of the pandemic. But changing preferences in the retail environment, people wanting to go out and spend time in places that they like with social spaces and where they can congregate with friends and family. That trend had already emerged and was emerging. Now that has just been accelerated. And I would say there were also fundamental changes to the home buying market or rental market. People have options in terms of where they live and work that maybe are different than they had in the past. You could have a job in Northern California and still choose to call San Marcos home, and what will that have in terms of impacts on people that how people choose to live where. And larger home preferences, people, if they are choosing to work from home, wanting some dedicated workspace to have that facility available in their home, whereas maybe they didn't need a home office before or need a retreat or private space. So I think that we're seeing some changes in that trend as well.
Okay. And then, question, as we put people on committees and commissions and things like that, the work is so important. Are our GPAC members attending? Or if they're not there, is there alternate there? Do we need to, because this is so important. If people aren't attending, then maybe we need to look at that.
Your GPAC has been fantastic. They are attending. We have alternates attending, even if their primary representative is there. We are extremely fortunate with the foresight and dedication of your GPAC members to join us. They understand the responsibility of the work, coming prepared to every meeting, having done their homework and ready to contribute to the conversation. And I do have the opportunity to work with lots of different GPACs on different projects like this, and it's been a true pleasure. Your group is extremely dedicated and prepared for our conversations, which is extremely helpful.
Okay. And then one last question. I think in the very beginning you made the comment on page 5 about some of the key findings, and one of them was general interest in high-density residential development. So I guess my question to you is, a lot of times we hear residents say that, we don't want any more, or don't put this density in this area. When you say general interest, what is general interest?
That was, I believe, specifically related to the property owner requests. Property owners were allowed an opportunity to request a change in land use to be considered as part of this process. It doesn't mean it's granted. It means it's being considered through the land use planning process. Of the 13 requests that we received, over half of them indicated an interest in changing the designation on their property to a higher residential density. It was their interest to make that request for a change in residential use. That was the general interest from property owners.
Property owners,
Yes.
not residents.
We have had residents provide input, as I've shared on separate slides, but that particular comment was in regards to the general interest of the property owners that submitted requests.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I have.
Okay.
I think it'll be safe to say that you're going to get interest on both sides of that question all the way through.
Definitely. Councilmember Nunez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the report and the update. I am very encouraged to see that you have the Spanish language briefing that's scheduled with at the school district. I don't see within the report that we've had a Spanish dedicated session or workshop. I did hear that there's been interpretation. I don't think it equals the same. I think there's a big difference between having somebody have the opportunity to have an exchange, hear information in their own language. So I am very encouraged by this, but one of the things I would like to see for us to either have a dedicated Spanish-speaking workshop or a briefing or an update for the general community, or if possible, have the school district allow for this to be opened up to the broader community. I think it would really serve our Spanish-speaking residents well, so that's something that I would definitely like to see. But thank you.
Okay, so I have a couple of follow-up questions. Transitional property zoning, are we going to continue that from our last general plan update in 2012? And if not, maybe just look into it, maybe just something for you to take a note of. We had that on.
I think we're considering it and we're looking at additional options for it.
Okay, good, okay. And then, have we been able to reach out to all of the vacant property owners and reach them, or have we found issues with that? And I'm talking about, you know, more general, larger properties where we know, specifically in like the MU3, where we know that's not a zoning that has been very useful. Can we, have we had any issues reaching out to anyone and contacting them?
I would say we were encouraged by providing the direct mailer to every property owner and business and resident in the city as part of that direct mailer, and we had a fantastic response to that. Most of our participants in the visioning workshops came as a direct result of that mailer, as did the property owner requests. We do have a very contemporary database of properties, and we can certainly identify those that are vacant, particularly those that potentially were included in the housing element, and reach out specifically to those property owners via the available contact information we have. We haven't heard anything to the contrary, and we did receive property owner requests from 3 property owners in the MU3 districts. So we believe that the word is out. We also have a representative from the BIA on the GPAC, as well as other representatives from realtors, and Beth and I made a presentation to NAOP. So we do believe that the real estate community is pretty well informed that the city is undergoing this process.
Good, and then you did bring up the BIA, because I think one of the discussions with them has to be, you know, when we're talking about property uses, you know, we do need more of that workforce housing type. And, you know, like even when we had that one location on Twin Oaks, off of Twin Oaks, the rezone, that was workforce housing. So it was smaller, it wasn't, you know, very large. We really need more of that, but since we don't actually build it, how do we encourage it? So I think it would be interesting to know what we can do on our end to figure out, you know, if we are going to go denser, how do we find those property types that are going to be more workforce housing, you know, potentially for our younger adults that may not have an option to actually purchase a home. You know, as things are going up and it's going so crazy, I mean, we were just, was it San Diego County is like the most non-affordable area in the whole country? I mean, that's pretty hard for, you know, our young people. They just don't have opportunities. So how do we create those opportunities in that housing ladder with all of the different housing types? And then one more thing. Oh, no, 2 more things, sorry. Floor area ratio, FAR, are we looking at that at all?
Yes, we are looking at that.
Okay, because I think that gives us more flexibility as well. And then also outside municipalities, have they looked at the maps and you know, identified any locations where they may be putting their facilities? Because I think that's an important part, especially the school district, to have that discussion with them as well.
Yes, we are working collaboratively with the school district specifically, but as well as your water, sewer infrastructure providers for their community facility needs or infrastructure needs. And as we develop the options for the maps, which are still being prepared, we'll certainly be coordinating with those agencies to ensure that if they have input, that it's uncovered through this process.
Okay, good. And then back to Sharon's point, Deputy Mayor, definitely a place for our 5th fire station, because we're definitely going to be needing that. So, okay, all right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then that item is done. Thank you very much for all of the hard work. Really appreciate all of it. I know it's, you know, it's a lot of work, and coordinating everyone and getting everyone together is great. And thank you for our GPAC committee being dedicated to this effort. We last updated our general plan in 2012, and excited to see it move forward as trends are changing and things are changing. So,
yes, and I will be back quarterly at a minimum.
Yes.
So you'll appreciate your time tonight and look forward to continuing this opportunity to have this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving on now to our consent calendar, which usually comes a lot quicker, but we just had a lot of presentations this evening. Does anyone have a motion or any items to be pulled on the consent calendar?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and we have one oral communication. We have Nina Williamson regarding the proposed ARCO/AMPM.
I think she just stepped out to use the restroom.
Oh,
So-
okay, well then, we can go on. If you can keep an eye out for her. I'm sorry, I didn't know which one she was. That would be great, and then we could just go back to that. Moving on to Sandag, we had a meeting on the 11th, and we did, so during the executive director's report, we did again, I brought up the road user fee and when that would be coming back, since it was approved in the December 10th RTP. And apparently, and I might have this wrong, I think we have the federal government has approved the RTP, but the state government hasn't, or vice versa. I know that we have to have both approvals before we can move forward to bring back an elimination of the road user fee as one of the funding sources. What I asked for was, with the elimination, if potential, it's not done yet, but if there is an elimination of the road user fee, what that would do to our greenhouse gas elimination, so a before and after as to what that number would be, and so staff said that they would work on that. And then we had, let's see, San Diego Regional Military Working Group Chair appointment. That was done. That was Gary Bonelli was done, and so Mayor Sotelo Solis is now doing that. And then there was a budget amendment for rail regional infrastructure, continuation of continued teleconference meetings. I think we're actually looking at hybrid, but we haven't made a decision yet on that. Transnet extension ordinance funding overview. There was some discussion about that. That will be coming back to us sometime in the spring. And the Mid-Coast extension of the UC San Diego Blue Line. We had some a presentation on that. It wasn't an action item. And then salaries and compensation, annual, I'm sorry, not annual, but an action plan progress report. And then there was also some corrective action plans that will be implemented moving forward with our compensation and salary, because there were a few things that we saw that were not how we wanted them to be. Then we had a litigation discussion, and then that was it. So did she come back, Phil?
Not yet.
Sorry, okay.
Yeah, she's walking in now, Mayor.
Oh, she's walking in now? Oh, well, we should probably just.
Give her a minute.
Hi, Nina. We will have you up if you're ready now. If not, we can let you sit and regroup. Thank
Okay.
you, wonderful. We were trying to kill a little time. I didn't get up and tap dance, but. Okay, so, yeah, that would be great. So yes, please come on up. Oh, you can come right up to the podium, I'm sorry.
I have to stand.
Yes, and you have 5 minutes. Are you okay with that?
I think I can stand
Okay,
and read these notes to you.
thank you.
Okay, so I just want to get a pen out.
Not sure what you're going to say, but we spoke earlier. I want to thank you for coming in.
Hello, Ed, we met on the telephone.
Yes, we did. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to tell you about a matter that has
Is your
been
microphone
bothering
on?
me
Sorry.
since the beginning.
Perfect, there you go. You
February.
move it however you'd like.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can, yes, thank you.
Since the beginning of February,
Oh, good.
I would be much more comfortable.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if we would be able to pull that together, so thank you, staff, for handling that. Thank you. I haven't seen that microphone in a very long time.
Thank you. Thank you, I'm not.
Uh-oh, is it charged? Okay.
Okay, is it working?
It is, thank you.
I want to tell you about a matter that has been bothering me since the beginning of February. And I know that it has been bothering other folks in the Royal Oak Senior Apartment Building where I live, some of them. On 2/14/19, the city sold the land on the southeast corner of Twin Oaks Valley Road and Borden, about 2.5 flat grassy green acres.
Sorry, Nina, could you, yeah, thank you.
That
Yeah,
abut the
thank you.
building that I live in. For one.
Thank you, Phil. Phil's the best.
For $1,340,000. The buyer was an Arizona limited liability company, MDBJ Investments, LLC. I would never have known about this sale except for this notice that everyone living in that building, there are several hundred seniors, I think, got. I received this in the mail on 1/31/22, 3 years after the sale that I just cited to you. It says M.R. Namu, Inc. has applied for a state license to sell alcoholic beverages at North Twin Oaks Valley Road and Borden Road, doing business as Twin Oaks Arco AM/PM. So they'll also sell gasoline, I notice. I have 30 days to protest about the alcohol being sold within 500 feet of where I live under California law. On the web just today, I learned that M.R. Namu, Inc. became a California corporation on May 17th, 2019, 3 months after the Arizona LLC, which was named MDBJ Investments, bought this land that's contiguous to where I live on Woodward Street. So, to finish up, I wonder whether the public is entitled to more information about the history of the sale of this public land that will result in more gasoline use rather than less, which would be better, and inexpensive alcohol being sold to drive-by motorists. So what I would do with the land is I would keep it grassy, flat, and open. Well, it's gone, so there's no point finishing that sentence. Thank you, Phil. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Nina. Staff could get back to you about the property sale. ABC is the governing agency that handles all liquor licenses, and I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, and staff can actually help me out on this, but I do believe that there will be EV chargers at that gas station as well. I think, yes.
There will
Yeah.
be 3 chargers.
Yes.
And I do believe that we are fooling ourselves about stopping climate change and global warming. We're not going to succeed because we're not moving quickly enough, okay?
Okay, thank you. I drive an electric car. 3 of us do up here, electric or hybrid. Thank you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your comments. Thank you for coming this evening. Okay, no more oral communications. Our next League of California Cities, Councilmember Nunez.
Thank you, Mayor. We did have a meeting this last week on February the 14th on Valentine's Day, and it was via Zoom. And we did have a presentation that was done by John Lindsay Pullen from the American Friends Service Committee. and it was in respect to AB 481 and its implementation or potential implementation in San Diego County, which provided information about this new state law, that its requirements and opportunities for city officials to understand and hear constituent input on law enforcement's acquisition and use of equipment such as drones, tasers, patrol rifles, and armed vehicles. So it is something that I think it's gonna come before us later this year to address. And they did record the meeting, and we were promised that we would get a copy of the presentation. We have not received that yet. We also did get a brief update on the public safety bills that the league is watching. And we were also supposed to get a written update of that. I haven't seen it come to us yet, so we'll definitely be circulating that as soon as we receive it. But when do you expect, Helen, for us to be looking at this AB 481 as a council?
It's not on my agenda. I don't know that the city has, does the city have any interest in applying for those kinds of?
Well, we can certainly take a look at it and see if there's anything that dovetails with our operations and
Yeah.
get back to the council if we think it makes sense.
The essence of it was that it affords municipal agencies, police agencies, it affords the council to review the equipment that their officers are using and the application of force and the mechanisms, whether it be individual physical force or devices, vehicles. It gets pretty broad, but it also allows for contract cities to then make those same determinations within their contracts. So it's I don't know that it's passed council member meetings. I think it's up still in Sacramento in committee.
No,
Has it passed there?
It
Okay.
has passed already. What it's not clear to me is really what our interaction will look like, given that we contract through with the sheriff. That's the part that it's not clear to me, what that will look like for us or as a city. But it is the law. Anyway, we'll be hearing more on this, and then we'll bring this back at least.
Okay, thank you. North County Transit, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, we met the end of last week. Have several bullets to go over with you. We are going to continue our virtual meetings for another 30 days. We seem to be a little mixed on that. We talked about a hybrid approach, but the majority wanted to continue virtually. We did have discussion about the Transnet funding allocation, and there was a group from North County Transit, Sandag, and MTS that have been working to address the shortfall, and the agencies have been meeting. They came up with a compromise. There is an 8-year compromise agreement that would give North County Transit 20% of these funds, not 30. And it's based on services that were in operation as of December 31, 2021. And it includes capital expenditures. So the other pots of money that we receive will still be 30%. Federal, other funds, we will still get the 30%. What this does is it gives us certainty for our expanded coaster service that we're launching, but we are going to figure out another approach for future coaster, and we were also hoping to increase Sprinter service, so we'll be seeking some other funding for those. We had a presentation about our real estate development activity. We are looking at developing properties that we own around North County Transit stations. Oceanside Transit Center is the first mixed use. And then we're also, that's in process. And we're also starting to look at 2 stations in Carlsbad, 2 coaster stations in Carlsbad. And then they're analyzing along the Sprinter track for a North County Transit land-owned to see what sort of projects that we could collaborate with a developer to bring into the area, work with the municipalities, whether it's Carlsbad, Vista, Oceanside, Escondido, San Marcos, and try to bring some housing into those communities with the goal that North County Transit's going to get revenue out of those projects. And it's a lot of money that we would have some ongoing funding for. And then in closed session, before that, we also discussed, as we know, there are a lot of personnel shortages throughout the county. Doesn't matter what public agency or business you're in. We're operating with approximately 20% below what our required staffing is. So it is affecting some rail operations. They're doing what they can to minimize the impact as much as possible, but we are 20% below where we need to be. Closed session, we discussed, met in closed session to discuss the Surface Transportation Board petition, which you've read about a lot in the news, and projects as it relates to the right-of-way. The board provided direction to the council to continue negotiations with the city of Del Mar, hoping to reach an agreement by our deadline of February 28th. So those were the highlights of the meeting. It was a very long meeting, I think well over 3.5 hours, but we got a lot accomplished.
The only thing I'm disappointed in is the whole 70-30.
Well, it's not all of our money. It's just the shortage of the Transnet.
I know, but that's a problem because
Yeah,
North County doesn't get their fair share. Again, this is what historically happens at Sandag, which is very frustrating. Again, MTS gets more San Diego than North County.
Yeah, but we're going to continue to get the 30% on the other parts of money, and this was it was a collaborative effort.
I know.
And I'm sure they'll continue
Still
to.
sales tax. It's not your fault.
Right.
I'm not shooting the messenger. Just still very frustrated about that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. North County Dispatch Joint Powers Authority.
We meet tomorrow morning. So
Tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow morning. So I'll have a report next meeting.
It's a new
Feels
day.
like forever,
it's Wednesday.
huh?
It's not Thursday.
Yep, it's tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Well, next meeting we'll expect to hear all about that. Okay. Clean Energy Alliance. Councilmember
Yes,
Musgrove.
thank you, Mayor. You asked for an update on the budget forecasting based on our membership into the CEA, the Clean Energy Alliance. So I'll get to that in one moment, but there was we brought this up a couple of months ago about the potential for Vista, Oceanside, and even San Clemente, which is in the service area for SDG&E, having an interest in joining the CEA. Their historical usage data has been received from SDG&E, and it's being evaluated. If they agree, then in April it would come before the respective city councils as well as the CEA board, and if all are open to joining, they would be brought in for full-time use in 2024. So that looks like it may be happening. I've been pushing a question from the day I came on, and maybe Councilmember Walton remembers that the exit fees bother me, and I brought that up here at council. So the CEA's legal counsel of Keys and Fox, they're going to offer us a detailed presentation at our Thursday board meeting on exit fees. They're working with the CPUC and an administrative law judge to try and dig a little deeper into SDG&E's contract practices. And essentially what I'm asking is, SDG&E has contracts let out years in advance, some up to 20 years, but as their customers move from direct service over to clean energy, then my concern is that these contracts that we're paying for as an exit fee, are those contracts still being paid for by SDG&E? So in other words, if they had a contract going out to 2030 and a proportionate number of customers have moved on to a CCA and they're getting billed for the, in this case, the remaining 8 years of that contract, does that contract still exist? Is SDG&E paying for power that they're not providing customers, or are they just passing on the expense because they can? And that's my greatest concern, and that's exactly what we're looking at. We want to do a full audit of SDG&E's business practice. When are those contracts being sold or ended? The energy providers, I'm sure they have no shortage of customers looking to send energy, especially at this time of the year. So I want to make sure that all of our residents, when we're paying our utility bills, that we're actually paying for power that we're either getting or we're obligated to pay for, and not being billed for something that somebody else is using, and SDG&E is actually making twice the profit, and that's my concern.
Well, theoretically, couldn't they sell it to the, if it is a clean energy contract, couldn't it be that it's sold back to the CEA, and then you're actually still buying the energy that you were getting in the first place with SDG&E? I mean, would that be possible?
I asked that question at the last board meeting, and I don't know if it was an epiphany for some, but it seemed like a logical answer. If SDG&E had those contracts let for the customers that we now have, why don't we just buy the contract?
Right.
Or transfer it. If
Right.
SDG&E
Yeah.
is not going to incur any debt, we'll take on the contract. So they're looking into that as well. And I don't know that they've looked at that as a line item, because SDG&E is not very forthcoming about the contracts that they have. So that's part of the audit that this law firm is doing. What contracts are actually out there? Are we buying a contract from provider A that SDG&E has that is actually the power we're paying for, but not getting?
Right.
So that's what I want to know.
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay.
Okay, so that'll be on Thursday. We're going to have a full reckoning from the legal counsel. And Mayor, you asked about the budget. So FY22, they're actually running a $2.7 million deficit on $57.9 million in revenues. But for 2023, the projected positive is $8.8 million on $82.4 million in revenue. FY24, $21.4 million positive on $151.4 million in revenue. And in 25, $26.2 million to the good on $152.2. And there's a great difference in there, and what it does is it factors in the operating budgets. So as we get more members, there's operating budget expenses that come with that, and the contracts. And so one of the questions I asked today was, we have a service debt we have to reckon with. We had a line of credit extended to us for $9 million, of which $6 million we took. $3 million is there if we need it. The $6 million has a rate of 2.75, and the remaining 3 to hold it in place is 1.3%. And so the question I asked today in the briefing with the CEO was, you're giving me numbers on revenue and expenditures and showing a positive account. Does this also factor in paying off that debt on those that loan? And it does. So after all the bills are paid, paying the debt service down, there's still going to be a positive growth effectively this coming fiscal year. Those debts, I'm sorry. There was an initial drawdown on credit before we joined, and then an extension. Essentially, as a result of Escondido and San Marcos joining, they knew they would have to pull new contracts, and they want to have them in place so the power's there when we actually come online next spring. And that was the impetus for the additional line of credit. So the anticipation is, because of the historical usage data, they know that given the number of customers they're going to inherit, there will be more than enough revenue to cover that debt, operating expenses, and put them back into the black and keep them there. And then I had a discussion with the CEO about the current situation in Europe and how that would impact fees. And quite honestly, she said, look, we're all looking at the same potential for fluctuations in power, but they are currently buying contracts now at different intervals to ensure that we have enough power to move forward, and then forecasting out to see when we might see increases. I don't anticipate any reductions in cost, but it's not like we're going to be paying more, and then SDG&E or Cal Edison would say, hey, we got a better rate. Everyone is going to be paying more. So they're trying to make it as cost efficient as possible and trying to mirror what SDG&E has so that they can continue to offer the power at a rate less than what you would pay if you stayed with SDG&E.
Okay. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. City Council business visits. Councilmember Nunez and I went to Hunter Industries this morning. There we are, right in front. It was pretty windy. It actually started sprinkling just a little bit right after that. Luckily, it didn't rain on us too much. But anyway, so there we are with Scotty Lombardi, Greg Hunter, who's the CEO, and Stephanie Brownwell, who's the CFO, and then Councilmember Nunez and me. Anyway, we met with Scotty Lombardi, the head of Global Talent and Management at Hunter. And it's San Marcos's largest private employer, which now is up to 1,000 employees. Was about 800, and now they're up to over 1,000, and they have been very busy. They have about 3,600 employees across the globe, which is Florida, Brazil, Australia, and Mexico. They have a 20-acre campus here in La Costa Meadows with LEED certified buildings and EV charging stations, as well as their own park and 10,000 square foot wellness center, which is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they just celebrated their 20th anniversary in November. I don't know if it's in here, but they have one employee that has been there the entire time, which was really incredible. I think we want to meet that person because that's pretty cool. So with Hunter, the entire time they've been open. And did you want to talk a little bit about what's going on, the rest of them?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I want to point out, not 20, but 40 years. They celebrated their 40th anniversary.
Oh, yeah, you
And-
know what? I don't know why I said 20. I meant 40. Because I said they have an employee for 40 years, so.
Right. Maybe you were thinking, they did share with us that their employees, their average is 17 years. See, so maybe you
Yeah,
were thinking
17.
20. So they have a lot of longevity, and they said that one of the reasons is because they're so employee focused, and they've been able to maintain that. So that was really exciting to hear. But I agree with you, Mayor. I think we need to bring that employee to the
think so,
council
40 years.
and recognize that service.
And he also worked for the grandfather that started the business 10 years before that. So actually, he's been with the family business for 50 years even, which is crazy.
I agree. So we did learn that since 2009, Hunter has acquired 6 other companies that mainly focus on landscape lighting, architectural and commercial, custom manufacturing and molding, and roll towel dispensing in non-residential bathrooms. They export everything from San Marcos to 138 countries around the world. And right now, they have over 1 million square feet of manufacturing space worldwide. And as the mayor mentioned, they are struggling to hire, just like we hear from so many other employers. And we did discuss, right, some of the, as we've been talking about, of some of the challenges with transportation, but they do encourage their employees to carpool, banpool, and to be creative about commuting to the office. And they also now allow hybrid work schedule with some at home who obviously are allowed to work depending on the departments. Obviously, with the manufacturing, they can't work from home. And so they have many employees that have been on site. Anything else, Mayor, that you want to add? I mean, we're so happy to obviously know that they've been here since the beginning and they want to continue here in the city.
Yes, one last thing. When you're talking about transportation, I did connect them with Matt Tucker over at NCTD so they could talk about a shuttle and see how that might help them. Because they were showing us a map, which was really fascinating, of all of the different places that their employees come from. And so all over the county, a lot of them do live off of the 78, so how great would it be for them to use either the Sprinter or possibly a bus, get them to, you know, even if they take the Sprinter to City Hall area and then somehow get a shuttle that could be utilized to help them get those last few miles over to La Costa Meadows, which would make a lot of sense. So anyway, a lot of their employees do live in San Marcos, but I don't remember what that number was. But it was a lot. I feel like it was 80 or something like that.
No, I think it was
No,
more.
no, actually, it was a percentage. It was a higher, it was a percentage. Okay, I don't remember what the number was. It was pretty high, though. In fact, oh, no, it was 100 and something.
I want to say it was 128 or something like that.
Is it in here and we're not
Maybe
seeing it?
Tess.
I don't know. Okay, I think it was 150, or right around 150, and then they had several from Carlsbad, too. So anyway, we're just going to keep guessing. No, I don't know. It was a lot. It was higher than we actually had anticipated. I think it was over 140, closer to 150, but I don't remember that exact number. But anyway, so we sure appreciate them. They do a lot for the community. If you don't know Hunter Industries, they really do a lot for the community. So we sure appreciate all they do for San Marcos and the greater community. Anything else?
No, great
Okay.
visit.
The 1,000 employees, is
Yes.
that here in
Yes,
San Marcos?
in San Marcos.
And they probably run 3 shifts.
They
I'm
do.
guessing.
They run, yeah, they do. So it used to be, I think they, because they've gotten busier during
Right.
COVID. So yeah, they've got 3 shifts. They're running all the time. Yeah, they're very busy. A lot of people, well, they were deemed essential because you still needed a lot of things, and they even make a few medical things that were necessary.
That
during.
was surprising. Yeah.
So that was their Hunter. I don't know. It was like I don't know, moldings or something like that. But they make a lot of custom things too, not under the Hunter Industries actual mother company. So anyway. It was fascinating. Anything else? Any council commentary? Oh, Creek.
Feel free to
Sorry. Oh, and a lot's happened. Do we have a picture of that? There was a really cool social media, and thank you to JPW on this. It actually had the beginning, before any bridge was started, and then it shows the bridge. I wish we had that picture. It's on social media. I just saw it today. I was like, wow, that's really cool to see the progress of where we're at today from the beginning. 2019, we broke ground. So anyway, go ahead, Jack.
That's fine. Your report's good. So
I don't have any notes. I'm just going from memory.
So we did what's called the stressing of the bridge deck last week. So for the non-engineer in me, that means post-tensioning essentially. So think about new construction with garages and stuff. You pull the cables through. With a bridge, you do it vertically and horizontally. So the engineers were all really enjoying that last week, watching that happen millimeter by millimeter. So you'll see some of the concrete surface work done later this week, next week, the sidewalk, barriers, the curbs and gutters, all that good stuff. The temporary water line on the south side of Discovery should hopefully be finished by the end of the week. That's important as we shift the focus soon over to the south side of Discovery to make sure the folks on that side of the road have water. At the request of the Lakeview Mobile Estates residents, we've removed their entry sign, gives them a little better visibility coming in and out of their home development. And you'll see a lot of pavement markings getting cleaned up because the road's gotten pretty beat up here in the past few months. So pothole filling and new pavement markings just to make things a little bit cleaner and safer. So it's good. And we're almost, we're gaining on halfway on the SEMA construction contract price. So the Via Veracruz Bridge being much bigger than the Bent Bridge will start to gobble up money fast once we get to it.
Gobble up money.
I have a question.
Well, we like to hear, but okay.
I have a
Yes.
question. Is it possible that we could do a tour someday soon?
Sure, we can
We-
find a
we
date
did that
here,
one
and
that-
we'll
gosh,
wait
that
till
was
it
probably
rains and get you
before.
out there in the mud. That'd be good. But yeah, we can set up a date here in March sometime. Sure.
When did we do the last one? Was it before COVID?
No, it was last fall, late summer, fall last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I found the number. It's 163 employees the Hunter has in San Marcos that live here.
Oh, that's more than I remember.
Yeah, I
That's
thought it was
great.
around 150, but it's 163. Anyway, any council commentary? Okay, yes.
I haven't had a chance to embarrass Captain Brown at all because we didn't have her for very long. but tonight's her last meeting with us. Captain Brown's been promoted, so we didn't get to work very long with Amy, but we really enjoyed our time. So thank you, Amy, and congratulations and good luck.
I didn't want to bring attention to it, but we are definitely going to miss her. Well, I think she's going to be a commander now, so she's moving on to bigger things than San Marcos, but we definitely wish her luck, and we're excited. No, not excited, but we'll say that we're excited when the next person comes. We certainly will miss you, but I'm sure we'll get someone awesome, just like you. So anyway, thank you so much for your service to San Marcos. I think you need to come on down. Oh, I think so. Come on. Oh, it'll be your last goodbye. Just a quick, oh, thank you so much. We're just going to put you on the spot.
You might as well relish this moment because you're going to be married to a desk pretty soon.
Oh, thank you, Amy. Don't.
I was sincere when I started this job that I couldn't wait to come back to San Marcos. It only took me like 16 years to get back here. And I feel like I just barely got here, and I just have been enjoying myself so much. And the people and the city and the council has just done such a great job with the city and the city manager. I can't thank you enough. I'll miss everyone. I'll miss this nice drive.
Yeah.
But when they call you for promotion, you say yes.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank
Congrats,
you.
Amy.
Thank you. Congratulations. All right, with that, this meeting's adjourned.
There are two variants in this population, type A and type B. And so type